day to you all watching us from various parts of the world. It is a bright and beautiful day right here in Laro Yewa, and welcome back to Poly TV Show. Or welcome if it's your first time on joining us to Poly TV Show right on Poly TV in Laro, a show where we give you all of the full gist and various information happening on campus and in Laro at large. I am Yoluwa Emitilo.
Yeah, good day everyone. My name is Adria Agbemi Sunday. You're welcome to Poly TV Show on Poly TV in Laro.
So it is a great delight to welcome you back on the show with us today. As always, we have quite interesting segments to go through. We have the newspaper front page review and also the center table. Yeah. So as always, before we delve straight into the various activities that we have planned for us on the show today, let's go on a quick break. We'll be right back.
Back, it's the Poly TV Show on Poly TV Ilaro. So we'll be starting with the newspaper front page review. We have so many newspapers, and today we will be starting with Nigerian Tribune newspaper, where we have the story as a major headline. NBA, Nasima, LCCI, man, PDP falls petrol price hike with so many riders, but I will just pick few. This hike may impact manufacturing, force SMEs to shut down, cause further job losses. Man, LCCI warns. And the story is on page 3 of Nigerian Tribune newspaper. Pick up the newspaper to read more.
And still on Nigerian Tribune, we see right on page 15 that bandits impose heavy levies on farmers to access land. Bandits impose heavy levies on farmers to access land. We see that Boko Haram wasn't hunger crisis in northern Borno. You can read much more on the story on page 15 of the Nigerian Tribune newspaper.
And just above the nameplate of the newspaper, I have this one on page 4. Perpetrators of Yobe killings will be brought to justice. That is coming through from our President Tinubu. And the story is on page 4 of Nigerian Tribune newspaper. You can pick up the newspaper to read more.
And on page 12 of the Nigerian Tribune newspaper, we see ACF say that North is ready for constitutional changes. North is ready for constitutional changes.
And with that, let's go down to Daily Independent newspaper, where I have the story as well. NEC revs up process, gives 4 states September 9 to submit report, and so many riders to adopt comprehensive report on Monday. And another one, FG releases 3 billion naira to states affected by flooding. And that story is on page 29 of Daily Independent newspaper. You can pick up the newspaper to read more.
So the story that I have here starts on the front page but continues right on page 7, and the headline reads us: Africa holds opportunities for growth, Tinubu tells Chinese investors. Africa holds opportunities for growth, Tinubu tells Chinese investors. You can read much more on the story on page 7 of the Daily Independent newspaper.
And I also have the story coming through on page 6, where I have this: FG committed to securing Northwest, Matawale assures Sokoto governor. I picked that again. FG committed to securing Northwest, Matawale assures Sokoto governor. So, and the story is on page 6 of Daily Independent newspaper.
And we also have another story on the Daily Independent newspaper that continues on page 7. It says, petrol pump price increase a recipe for crisis. Petrol pump price increase a recipe for crisis, PDP warns. So the story starts right on the front page but continues on page 7 of the Daily Independent newspaper.
Also on the same page 7 of the newspaper, I have this one: economic activities expand first time in 13 months, and that is coming through from CBN. The story is on page 7 of Daily Independent newspaper.
Moving straight on to the Vanguard newspaper, we see that Shettima inaugurates $115 million upgraded West Africa container terminal. Shettima inaugurates $150 million upgraded West African container terminal. This story is found on page 20 of the Vanguard newspaper.
And just above the nameplates, we have this one. China to help Nigeria fight money laundering, terrorism financing. China to help Nigeria fight money laundering, terrorism financing, and with just one rider, Nigeria, China move to revive local currency swap. And that story is on pages 13 and 9 of Vanguard newspaper. You can pick up the newspaper to read more.
And the main headline on the Vanguard newspaper reads thus: petrol price hike, Nasima, LCCI, NECA worry over jobs and economy. Petrol price hike, Nasima, LCCI, NECA worry over jobs and economy. You can read much more on this story on page 5 of the Vanguard newspaper.
So let us take you down to what is happening on the front page of the Punch newspaper. I have this one, petrol scarcity, that is the kicker, and the story is NNPCL bars independent marketers amid surging prices. NNPCL bars independent marketers amid surging prices, and that is on page 2 of the Punch newspaper.
And on the Punch newspaper on page 2, we see that NEC fears poor harvest as flooding kills 205. NEC fears poor harvest as flooding kills 205. You can read much more on this story on page 2 of the Punch newspaper.
Also, I have this one just down, and it's on page 28. Abure rejects OT's 29-man peace panel. That is on page 29 of the Punch newspaper.
Right on page 10, we see Wanted breathing say, Nigerian police will torture and kill me if I surrender. Nigerian police will torture, kill me if I surrender. Wanted breathing says. You can read much more on the story on page 10 of the Punch newspaper.
Also, just above the nameplate of the Punch newspaper, we have this. Nigeria's economy has stagnated. That is commentary from Bill Gates. And that story is on page 29 of the Punch newspaper.
And moving right along to the Daily Times newspaper, front page here, we see PDP make a bold claim. They say fuel price hike, brutal assault on Nigerians. Fuel price hike, brutal assault on Nigeria. We have a couple of things on there. We see, this says, Tinubu and APC have lost relevance in governance. Petrol price increase will worsen poverty amongst Nigerian workers, TUC says. NLC accuses presidential aide of amnesia, falsehood, and maintains position on petrol price. So if you want to read much more on this story, find out everything in details, you can find it on page 2 of the Daily Times newspaper.
And still on that, we have the small commentary from the Afenifere that is still on a fuel price hike, and this is the story. Afenifere urges FG to order NNPCL to reverse itself. Again, Afenifere urges FG to order NNPCL to reverse itself. And that story is on page 6 of the Daily Times newspaper.
And right on page 4 of the Daily Times newspaper in happy news, I would say, COPS members should expect increased allowance soon, NYSC DG says. COPS members should expect increased allowance soon, NYSC DG says. You can read much more on this story on page 4 of the Daily Times newspaper.
And the last headline on the Daily Times newspaper, FG calls for enhanced leadership, operational efficiency in federal hospitals, and that is on page 11 of the Daily Times newspaper.
Moving straight onto the Daily News Hub, we see fresh crisis hits Labour Party as Obi, OT, NWC disagree over caretaker chair. Fresh crisis hits LP as Obi, OT, NWC disagree over caretaker's chair. We see that NWC kicks Anderson Nenadi Usman, insists Abure remains legitimate national chairman. They declare ex-finance minister's appointment illegal, unconstitutional, and mischievous, says Umuahia stakeholders meeting a charade, a waste of time, and the resource of people by Governor Oti. You can read much more on the story when you pick up a copy of the Daily News Hub newspaper.
Also, I have the story. Again, gunmen attack Rivers APP secretariat. shoot security guard, and that is on Daily News Up. You can pick up the newspaper to read more on that story.
Right on Daily News Up newspaper, we see 3,590 inmates on death row in Nigeria. 3,590 inmates on death row in Nigeria, NCOS says.
Okay, so on the Nation newspaper, let's go down to the Nation newspaper. I have this one. Queues persist. Commuters talk despite petrol price hike, and the story starts from the front page and it continues on page 4 of the same newspaper. You can pick up the newspaper to read more.
And right on the front page of the Nation newspaper, we see more on the Labour Party internal crisis. We see that Abure clashes with OT and OB over setting up of interim EXCO. Abure clashes with OT, OB over setting up of interim EXCO. You can read much more on the story on page 5 of the Nation newspaper.
So quickly on the Daily Sun newspaper, we have this one. Not ready to talks on restructuring new constitution. That is coming through from ACF. Not ready for talks on restructuring new constitution, ACF. That is coming through from ACF. The mass apology from region's leaders, and the story is on pages 7 and 26 of Daily Sun newspaper. You can pick up the newspaper for more information.
And on page 4 of the same newspaper, we see this bold headline. It says, 3 million naira extortion. Police arrest erring officers. 3 million naira extortion. Police arrest erring officers. Mr. Kikude says, suspects to face orderly room trial and, if possible, dismissal. You can read much more on this story on page 4 of the Daily Sun newspaper.
So let us take you down to the world of sport. What is happening on our Sporting Sun? We have this one. Okoye Einacho swell Super Eagles camp. Okoye Einacho swell Super Eagles camp with 22 players now in Uyo. Osimhen expected today, and that is on page 4 of Sporting Sun newspaper. You can pick up the newspaper to read more on that.
And right on page 6 of Sporting Sun newspaper on the sport news, we see great news for Lookman as Lookman makes 2024 men's Ballon d'Or list. Lookman makes 2024 men's Ballon d'Or list. You can read much more on this story on page 6 of the Sporting Sun newspaper.
And the last one on Sporting Sun, Tony, now highest paid English player in history, and that is on Sporting Sun newspaper. You can pick up the newspaper to read more.
And moving straight onto Punch Sports Extra, we see this story that is on page 6. It says Chelsea still keen on Osimhen. Chelsea still keen on Osimhen, and this is the last story that we will be taking from the Punch Sport Extra, and this will be the last story we'll be taking today on our newspaper front page review. We read from various newspaper today. We read from the Punch, Vanguard, Daily Sun, Punch, Sporting Sun, and various other newspapers. So if you want to read much more on all of the aforementioned headlines in details, be sure to pick up a copy of the newspapers today. So
let's go on a short break and we'll be right back. Yes.
Welcome, it is still Poly TV show on Poly TV Ilaro, and straight we're moving right on to the center table where we have a very important and distinguished guest right here on set with us in the studio. He's here to discuss with us a very important topic, which is achieving excellence through the eyes of the pen. We have with us in the studio today Dr. Olasunkanmi Olakpeju. Welcome, sir.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm pleased to be here with you.
Yes, it is a great privilege to actually have you right here in the studio with us. And first, who is Dr. Olasunkanmi Olakpeju?
Okay, with all modesty, Olasunkanmi Olakpeju, PhD, a native of Duani in Ondo State.
Okay.
Graduated from the Federal University of Technology in Accra, first degree, second degree at the same institution. Then I went ahead to the University of Technology in Malaysia, in Malaysia to bag my PhD.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, that is nice. So, what are you into aside being a staff of the institution?
Essentially, like you already said, I'm a lecturer in the Department of Urban and Urban Planning. But other than that, my household rights.
Okay.
I write, and then I get involved in planning consultancy.
Okay.
Because I'm actually an urban and urban planner, so there's a consultancy hand of what I do. As academics, especially in a practice-based institution like the Federal Polytechnic Ilaro, you are meant to put what you're teaching into practice. That way, you'll be able to really teach more effectively.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, in mentioning the things that you do, obviously as a person, you mentioned that you're a writer, and you also mentioned that you're a town planner.
Yeah.
So, how do you combine? Both of them are tedious jobs, I would assume.
Yeah.
So, how do you find time to combine, both together and still be able to do both of them?
But actually, in the course of our training as town planners, I think it's inbuilt for us to develop writing skills.
Okay.
That's besides the fact that I actually discovered myself right from my university days. As far back as when I was a sophomore, my part 2 in the university, I started writing for newspapers. I started writing for the Nation newspaper as a freelance writer back then. And I think I actually discovered myself way back when I was a librarian of a particular ideological group, that's Democratic Socialist Movement. And because I was a librarian, I had access to quite a lot of books, so it encouraged reading. They say that readers are also writers.
Yes, definitely.
So I believe that that was where I actually discovered myself, fully. That was where I actually discovered myself, and ever since then, the nature of my course also demands that I write. Because most of the time, apart from the fact that we do a lot of designs, we also write reports. Because whatever you design, you're also meant to expatiate, through writing. So we do a lot of report writing. So my, experiences as somebody who was exposed to political activities within the campus, somebody who had affiliations with, a popular newspaper, and all of those kind of helped me to developing a writing habit. Yeah.
Okay, so sir, considering the century we are where we don't read, where youths don't read, rather.
Yeah, exactly.
So have you ever been disturbed or discouraged, maybe distracted, like maybe feel discouraged about your writing?
I don't feel discouraged, because for me it's a play. But though I get sad that younger ones are actually not taking cue, the younger ones are becoming disinterested in writing because they don't read. Because like I said the other time, good writers are also good readers.
Yes.
So it's turning out that in our generation, most younger ones don't really apply their minds to knowledge, and that way it reflects poorly on their writing. It reflects poorly on their depth, and right now, probably because people don't know that there are opportunities also. Their minds are dimensioned towards other things, whereas writings also afford you quite a lot of opportunities. Can take you places, can win you opportunities, and our younger ones are not just saying it, and it's saddening at times.
So, speaking of writing, bringing opportunities and writing, opening doors for people, do you think writing can essentially bring one into riches? That is, do you think you could get rich through writing?
Richness is quite relative. You know, most writers I know are actually very philosophical. We're also very ideological. We might not actually find a richness from material surplus. You know, richness can come, you know, in the form of the impacts that we make in society. You know, yeah, the messaging that our creative efforts is able to spin off. You know, not necessarily the material gains, but even nowadays, quite a lot of writers are making money. Quite a lot of writers are having all their works being posted on eBay, Amazon, and they are quite. I mean, they're as lucrative as the work of content creators on the social media. They're also, you know, cashing out, so to speak, to use
Gen Z terms.
Gen Z terms, you know.
Yes,
so,
yes, yes.
So it's not really, writers are not poor people.
Yeah, okay.
Even in academia, a lot of writers are doing fine. The fact that you can write gives you an edge when it comes to being able to win grants, you know, being able to present grant proposals, being able to write good journal articles. You know, those are the things that actually count for people, you know.
Right. Okay, so sir, can one learn writing in an institution of learning, or it's just a skill developed from passion?
Well, your question is in two ways, because for me, I think writing for me is play. I'm not too sure that I learned it. It's kind of inborn for me. Okay. And like I said, probably I was able to, the posting ground of the democratic socialist movement, a left-wing ideological group in my school, university days, afforded me the opportunity to own my writing skills. Okay. Not as if I really applied my mind to it from the beginning. But I'm saying that in modern era, I know quite a lot of people are, you know, intentional about applying their mind to creative writing. Maybe in schools abroad and maybe some special schools in Nigeria, creative writing is beginning to be integrated into, you know, curricula, where, you know, kids from, you know, our own equivalent of primary school are introduced to creative writing.
Yes.
Yeah, it kind of helps. It kind of helps. But in the absence of that, the only way around that is when you really apply your mind to reading, while reading. Yeah.
Okay. So when I asked you a question earlier about, you know, can writing bring riches, you mentioned, you know, certain writers and philosophers. I want to ask you, who is your favorite writer, or who would you say is your favorite philosopher?
Yeah.
My favorite philosopher, I would say maybe Karl Marx, within the context of global ideological worldview. Within the context of cultural influence, I would say Wole Soyinka.
All right.
That is nice. Okay, so for those who love writing, what is your word of encouragement to them?
I would say they should keep writing, because, like I said, writers are readers, and writers are not also becoming leaders, because most of the time writers are like philosopher kings. You know, they are, you know, creative elements, you know, that want to shape society with their ideas. You know, they want to shape society through the ideas that they espouse, through the ideas that they express. So they should not relent. They should keep influencing their, you know, local spaces. They might not know gradually the ideas have an impact. It might not be something whose effects can actually be appreciated suddenly, whose effects can actually be appreciated immediately. But over time, the impacts, the significance will be well established.
All right, so, you know, last and final question for this session. What are certain ways that you would advise, or certain steps you think a person can take when they want to get into writing for a beginner? So like they like writing, or they like writing, and they're like, okay, I feel like I want to do this thing, but they're not really familiar with it, because obviously they don't know how to go about it. So, you know, what are those little baby steps that you can, like, you know, tips basically that you can give to them?
Like I said the other time, it's fundamental that they need to apply their minds to reading, while reading. and then it's not going to be enough. They also need to attempt writing. At the beginning, they'll be making mistakes, but they should keep trying. I've seen people who actually started off very poorly. Over time, they kept writing and they kept owning their skills to get better. So it's not something you can grab
at once.
At once.
Yes.
Okay, so thank you very much for coming. We appreciate you, sir.
Yeah,
it's nice having you on set with us.
It's my pleasure to be here with you.
Yeah, it was great to hear more about writing and learn more about writing. So, a quick one before we actually go. You mentioned that Wole Soyinka is your, let's say, favorite writer in cultural aspects. So which book of yours would you recommend to any beginner writer or reader?
I'm not going to recommend Wole Soyinka's book to beginner writers.
Okay.
Yeah, I can only recommend this book for maybe decolonization, and then getting better, perspectives about, acculturation. You get it, but I think for beginners, Wole Soyinka will be too complex.
Okay, so thank you very much, sir.
Right. Thank you so much for your time. It was a great time here in the studio. So, guys, that was it for this particular section on Center Table. We had a lot. For anyone that is looking to get into writing, you need to be a reader first and foremost. And also, if you're trying to get into writing, don't pick up a Wole Soyinka's book. At least not yet. It's a bit too complex for you.
Thank you very much, sir, for coming. We appreciate you. So let's go on a short break, and when we're back, we'll be wrapping it up. So we'll be right back.
And we are back. Thank you so much for being with us on the show today. It's been a really, really great and wonderful time, you would agree. I enjoyed the Center Table section that we had with Dr. Olasukomi. It was a really, really wonderful, experience. Hearing about writing, about readers. It actually, sparks me up, especially now that we're in exam season, you would say. So, we need to start reading and all of that. Also, looking at you, you're all decked out in jean. Are your shoes jean? Okay, those ones are not jeans. But in case you are not aware, today is the
FIB Day 4, and we are having a jean on chin, as you can see. We're looking so pretty, so beautiful.
We're all decked out in jean on jean. So far it's been wonderful, you would say, from the beginning of the week, right? Yes, it's been a really, really wonderful experience. I've had fun. This week is probably funnest? The most funnest week that I've had.
It's a great memory, though. So
yes, definitely.
This week is full of memories.
Definitely. We've been having the time of our life. Let's just put it like that.
And it's once in a lifetime.
Yes, it's once in a lifetime. So we've been enjoying it. We've been living, loving life, basically. So thank you so much for being with us on the show today. Today has been a really, really wonderful and amazing time in the studio. We had the newspaper front page review where we discussed various topics, the various headlines in the country. We also had the Center Table where we had Dr. Olasukomi in our midst, and he spoke to us about, writing,
achieving excellence through the work of pen.
Yes, reading, and all of that basically. And that will be all from us at Poly TV Ilaro on the Poly TV show. Of course, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, to share, to turn on your post notifications so whenever we drop a new episode, you're notified, you're aware. So thank you so much for joining us on the show today. My name is Moyoluwa Enitela.
And I am also grateful to be here, and thank you all for watching. Thank you all for liking, because I believe you are going to like this post. So definitely. My name is Adura Gwemi Sode. So see you tomorrow. Bye.